Hello, welcome everyone. Today I'm going to dive right into the 9 tragic mistakes that Bible believing busy women with incredible hearts make unknowingly that keeps them from ever getting and then keeping the body they desire. Understanding and addressing these common mistakes is so critical because without knowing them and knowing how to solve for them, then you just keep creating that same hamster wheel yo-yo pattern that is so frustrating of losing the weight only to find it again. Nobody wants to be in that lost and found. Amen. And when we are in that cycle, it can feel frustrating. It can feel like we're doing something wrong. I've been there. I've done that. I've walked those shoes, and I don't want that to be your story any longer. And a lot of these mistakes are things that you just didn't know what you didn't know, but by the end of today, you're going to. And we're going to keep this quick today, so let me cut to the chase. You do want to be here for the end because I am saving the best for the last. And also, I'm going to be gifting you a free resource that will lay out the mistake and the solution, what you don't know, and what to do about it instead. Today, I'm going to rapid fire through pretty much focusing on the mistakes so that you have an awareness just in case you want to skim read so that you're drawn in and you want to look for the solution. The solution will be in the free resource. Just type resource below and I'll make sure to get that out to you. Super simple and effective ebook that'll take you 3 minutes or less to read and then give you powerful insights when you choose to actually follow through for yourself and take action on them. Fair enough? So if it's all right with you, before I jump into the 9 mistakes and what to do for them and give you the free resource to help actually make a difference for you, I want to give you a little snippet of my story because I am here to educate, equip, and empower. And part of empowering is understanding that truly, no matter how busy you feel you are, no matter how many times you feel like you have failed in the past, if this is possible for me and possible for countless women that I've coached over the last decade, it sounds crazy pants to me to say that I've helped thousands over the last decade. And yet it's true. And when we get this dialed in, our health and well-being in mind, body, and spirit, it is the tide that rises all ships. I've known that to be true. I've seen it literally transform my life because the foundation of who we be and what we get to do, which then impacts what we have and then impacts what we give. It all starts with being able to be the best version, the best expression of our truest, most authentic self. And that only comes when we have that roots and grounding in health and well-being in mind, body, and spirit. All right. So let me tell you and share with you a quick, short version of my story. If you didn't know, I'm Coach Rebecca Tabert. I'm the self-proclaimed Kingdom Fit coach. And I will tell you that that is a title that God spoke to me in my quiet time, not as like a woohoo crazy thing, but just the heart of being Kingdom Fit is exactly what I just shared with you. It's being the best, most fullest expression of ourselves so that we can be all that we are meant to be, do all that we're meant to do in purpose, on purpose, and then have all of the crazy abundance that is just waiting for you to like fully access, right? And then of course, when good people have good money, we do great and amazing things. Yeah, amen. Give me an amen in the comments if you're with me. If you're listening to this on replay on the podcast, I still want you to talk back to me, say it out loud. It'll help you pay attention and be engaged. So I'm a talk back type person. We're going to go to a little bit of church today, as they would say. So in my 20s, weight was a challenge for me. I wasn't always unhealthy. I wasn't always overweight. I wouldn't say that I was necessarily healthy either, but you know, when you're a teenager, you can eat whatever, or at least I could for a long time, until in my 20s, I started this really bad association with food became my comfort. And I don't want to go into too much of the details and the why, it really doesn't matter. But I really developed this stronghold of food being that comfort. So initially it started when I was pregnant because that was the tool that I used to try and comfort and manage stress and everything that was going on in life at that time. And when I gained over 65 pounds. I'm only 5'1". My son was only 8 pounds, 10 ounces. So he was a big baby 4 weeks early, but he definitely was not the 65. And when I had my son, I didn't lose the weight right away because of the habits that I had developed, and it became a stronghold. So a lot of the weight stuck with me for a long time. And that emotional eating turned into an eating disorder over time. And in addition to that, I was diagnosed with PCOS. If you're not familiar with PCOS, the basic of it is that over 80% of women with PCOS have a hard time managing weight. Most are overweight. Over 80% are overweight because part of what we get to experience, the root of it is a hormone imbalance. So our body responds to things differently. It doesn't mean that it's impossible for you. That's a much more common diagnosis nowadays. And I'm glad that they're discovering it sooner than later. So a lot of women do come with me understanding what that is and understanding what the challenge is. And I just want to take a quick second to remind you that you don't need to be a statistic. There's nothing like extra special about me, but determination that every statistic I should have been, like it's just not for me. I don't need to be that, right? That's not my story. And so for me, it was hard for me to lose weight and then overcome the emotional eating, turned eating disorder, bulimia. However, about 20 years ago, I made that decision that being uncomfortable in my body and using food for comfort and turning to food instead of God was no longer going to be in my story. And at the time, I will tell you, I didn't even realize that I was actually turning to food instead of God, right? I just thought all I knew was that if I was stressed, if I was anxious, if I was tired, you get everything else done because you are a weight maker. I was a single mom at the time. I was in corporate America at the time. Really just doing whatever I needed to do to be the provider for me and not whatever. I've always had strong ethical background, but, doing the hours, I should say, to create a life for me and my son. And yet I made that decision that I was going to start taking consistent action, because as great as a mom as I thought I was, how much better would I be if I actually felt good? And so with inconsistent action, I want to hear me that it has been inconsistent action, especially in the beginning, but with a determined spirit that quitting is not an option, it forever changed my life, which then in turn changed our legacy for me and my son. Financially, I was also struggling at the time, and the transformation in me physically, spiritually, growing my personal relationship, all of these things combined, I ended up scaling the corporate ladder and mid-20s, making north of six figures 20 years ago in a male-dominated world. Like, ladies, all the talk today about, females and males environments and all this, like it wasn't even a thought for me. You just show up, get it done. And I did. And I would not have been able to do any of that if it weren't for building this foundation. And what I will tell you, even if that is not your story now, which I hope it's not, I doubt it is, because I tend to attract super powerful women. I will tell you that at some point in time, 6 or 7 years later, I ended up getting that nudge to equip and empower women because I knew how much it had transformed my life. And I took a huge leap of faith and left the comfy corporate and started with nothing, like started over again with nothing, and ended up building a business that I had the honor of helping thousands of people through a brick and mortar fitness business for over a decade, and now 100% online, equipping and empowering women. And I share that with you because each iteration, each reinvention, each calling of more that God has us for, or each vision that you see that you are wanting to attain and move towards, it's going to require a new iteration of you. It's going to require you being able to step into the identity of her, the fullness, the power of her. And in order for you to be the next version of her, you embodying you, that next version of you, it requires a next level. No matter how strong you are, no matter how much you've done, no matter how much you've accomplished, no matter how much emotional mastery you have, there is always another level. And that's what we get to continually work on cultivating and pulling out. That was meant for someone. And if that's you, type me below, because that was not part of it. But what I do want to share with you is that when I was first getting started in my experience, I was a single mom at the time, working all of those hours in that corporate job, right? And one of the things I sometimes hear is that someone will see me now and they make a lot of assumptions. That's actually a whole nother, I won't go down that rabbit hole, but it's not always been easy. You can do it. If I can do it as a single mom in a corporate environment, even, if I can do it, you can do it too. So many women, and or if you're in that stage of your business where you're building that $1 million business, multi-million-dollar business, and you're wondering if you have time, I'm going to impress upon you, you don't have time not to, because as amazing as everything is that you are experiencing today, if your fitness, if your health in mind, body, and spirit is not where you know in your soul that you're called to be at, then there is even more in you. There's another level of impact. There's another level of income. There's another level of connection and community that is available to you when you yourself are at your very best. All right, let me get back on track right now. So let me tell you that when that physical transformation it was so far above and beyond what you would think, what that initial want or desire. Yes, the rockin' body is awesome, and having this body that you feel comfortable and confident in, not somebody else's body, not a different version, but the one that like lights you up, not the version of your body that you've settled for because you're questioning whether or not you can or can't and whether it's for you or whatever. It is all for you. There's always a way. I promise you there is, right? So being able to feel confident and carry this presence into every room because you're rooted, right, is an awesome side perk of the goal of getting the body you want. Does that make sense? Rocking the summer clothes without a second thought, being able to wear the tank tops, wear the shorts, put on a bathing suit. One of my clients had messaged me and said that it had been years, decades before she had worn a, she wanted to wear a bikini, and she was confidently wearing a bikini. Those little things increase our levels of confidence that aren't little. It feels into every other aspect of life, right? Being able to shop without having a meltdown. These are some of my wins, right? I still don't love shopping because, crowds, but being able to like literally go in and pull things off of the shelf. I remember the days of taking forever to change or to get ready for something, right? Because nothing seemed to fit. 3 to 5 outfit changes and walking past the mirror and still feeling like, ugh, and really dreading needing to do social events and that type of thing because I didn't feel comfortable in who I was. I will tell you that being able to have the energy to really live out the fullness of life, right? I don't really have sick days. My clients don't really have sick days, right? The fullest extent is if something does come, then it's quickly moving through it, right? There's so much to having that health and fitness as the foundation that is really underrated. Being able to not be on medications, right? I'm not going to promise you that that's good. Like, I'm not claiming to be able to get rid of all medications. I will tell you this, 20 years in the industry and the power of foods and self-care and understanding how that all works together is healing. And it does amazing things, but you're just not taught that. So what I want to share with you is that, yes, if I can do it, you can do it too. And I've been helping other women for over a decade. There isn't something that is broken or unique about your life situation or circumstance that makes it impossible for you. There is a way, right? Also, if you're newer to me, when you hear me talk, you will know that I keep it real, that my goal is to be clear and to speak truth from a lens of love and kindness. So As we dive in, if you're ready, type ready in the comments or say ready on if you're listening to this on audio on replay. Let's dive into these 9 big mistakes. And I'm mindful of time, so I'm going to rapid fire the mistakes. Type resource below, or if you're listening to the podcast afterwards, there'll be a link for the resource. And I'll make sure that I send that over to you so that you have a good understanding of how to solve for them. But the most important thing, first step, is awareness, right? So I'm going to reverse these. So mistake number 9 is that so many people assume that getting the body that you feel amazing in is going to require that you give up your favorite foods. It's going to require extreme restrictions. And of course, this is because there's a lot of, I'll say, fit pros and like really well-meaning people that feel like that's the only way, and or their way is the best way. And sis, if you can't see yourself living your entire life without cake or cookies or ice cream, or for me, it's ice cream and sushi, right? And sometimes pizza, right? I don't want to live a life without those things. I don't want to eat them every day, but if I felt like I had to do that, then the process that would require me to get the result I want is not sustainable, right? So if the process to get the body you want, if the diet that someone told you is the way, the only way, the one that should work for you because it worked for Aunt Susie and social media, Jane, whatever, right? If that process is not something you see yourself doing for a lifetime, then of course, the results that you might get in a short, like over a period of time, are going to be short-lived. Making sense? And I know when we stop to think about it, you might think, well, that makes a lot of sense, but then what do we do, right? There's a process and there is a way to figure it out, but I want to share with you, there are foundational principles that do work for most women. However, you get to become, what I teach is becoming a student of your mind and body and understanding what is working for you in this season that fits your lifestyle, that fits your wants, that fits your likes and your dislikes. And when you develop some simple nutrition protocols around that, but it's a custom approach. But when you design some simple nutrition protocols around that, then there's a process. My clients say all the time, like, yeah, this doesn't feel like a diet. I'm just learning how to eat in a way that gets me the body I want. And I have more energy. I have more focus. I have more drive because I'm actually giving my body what it needs and not depriving it of the fun things, right? Or the little things, right? Your want-tos do change over time, but that's another story. Mistake number 8. So remember that the solutions, also type resource below, and I'll be happy to send them, not trying to, just trying to make sure that you understand the mistakes and then give you what you need from that resource and just kind of touch on the solutions here. So mistake 8 is that you kind of ties back to 9, and that is that you believe the next diet is the holy grail. So you keep jumping from one diet to the next, and you think, because that's what you've been taught, that this time it will work. The challenge is that when we go from diet to diet to diet to diet, there are things that are happening within your body, hormone shifts that are happening that are going to make it harder for you to lose weight effectively every time you choose that route. So sometimes you might even jump back to a diet you did 5 years ago that worked for you at the time, and it doesn't work the same for you anymore. And that's because there's a process that you get to go through to actually help your body heal, repair metabolism, so that you can get to a point where you can start, most of my clients end up eating more and see the weight fall off. But jumping from diet to diet, I know it feels like it's the right thing to do. I know it feels like it's so much simpler and so much easier. But is it really simple? Is it really easy when it's cost you a decade or 2 decades of trying this and then getting some results and then falling back again? Like that cost, when we stop to think of it, is far greater than slowing down, doing it the right way so that then you can speed up. If that's making sense, type landing. If it's landing with you, type landing in the comments, say landing out loud. If it's not, I'll circle back to all the comments after this, and I'll leave a link for you guys to send me an email on the podcast, if you're listening from there, so you can ask all the questions. I'm happy to clarify. There's no iron curtain for me. This is the same things that I teach my clients. It's a longer conversation, longer process. But mistake 7, it's really hard, and I get that, to set boundaries with family and friends. A lot of times when women come to me, they are the first in their friend group. They're the first in their circle. They're the first in their family sometimes for decades. Like they are determined and committed to change generational health, which in my opinion is the greatest wealth, because again, that's the foundation for everything else. And when they are in that process, in the initial stages, for some, it's really hard. And so they fail to set healthy boundaries. And so then they end up giving in. And this kind of ties back to really understanding and being able to sit in the fullness of your worthiness, the fullness of who you are, and not needing external validation. Because when we're not setting healthy boundaries, we're actually allowing the other people to have weight over what is best for us, when at your heart, you know what is best for you. So what I mean by that, one of my clients shared as an example, that her culture, her friend group, this was true for her actually, both in her family and her friend groups at the time. She was the first among them to be the person that chose a different way, that chose to be healthy, that chose to start moving her body with intention and eating in a way that she felt good instead of feeling tired and heavy all the time. And as she started to choose this, her friends weren't used to her saying, no, I don't want to drink that much today. Or no, I don't want the chips and salsa today, right? I teach that you can have what you want when you want, but that's another conversation. So she was with intention, she was saying, I just don't feel like having that today. So it was like, come on, are you on another diet again? Come on, are you sure you don't that's no fun. How boring. You're not going to have chips and salsa. What do you mean you're not going to drink with us, right? And so then a lot of times women tend to give into that. And they're like, oh yeah, okay, I'll have one, or whatever it might be. And instead you want to be able to learn how to lovingly, with compassion and empathy, set healthy boundaries. Compassion and empathy is ultimately for you, but it's understanding that when someone is coming, I want to say at you for the lack of a better word, it is so much more about them. You deciding to get healthy is triggering something inside of them. And that's a whole nother, I could talk on that alone for 30 minutes. So understand that setting healthy boundaries that you have decided with intention to set, because those are the boundaries that are going to align with your long-term goals. It's a process, and it's a critical step of the process. Mistake number 6 is that you think you should be able to lose weight and break your emotional eating cycle on your own, even though you've been shitting all over yourself for years and decades. If you could do it on your own, said with love, it would already be done. Amen. If you could do it on your own, it would already be done. And there's no shame in that. There's no harm in that. You aren't spending hours. You don't have a gazillion certifications. You don't have the hours of emotional mastery. You may in business, you may in other things, but food and our attachment and the relationship that we've built in food, I often define it as this. It is a well-worn trench that you've been digging and you've been working on. Maybe, obviously not intentional. You never asked to have this as a challenge, but your mind, your brain, the circumstances around you, the things that have been said to you, the meaning that you gave all of it, developed this trench that has been dug over years, over decades. And so to think that you're just going to be able to hop out and come over and build a healthy path on your own, sis, that is so hard to do. I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm saying it's a much longer journey, just like you have witnessed and you have experienced, because you've probably been, I want to say, battling this aspect of life. I know you're a way maker. You get things done, you make things happen, which is super frustrating. A lot of my clients come to me and they feel frustrated because they've created all this success in business and it feels like, why can't I do this for my own fitness? So then you just think you should be able to, right? Instead, we hire business coaches, we hire all these other coaches and I know you know this, but it's the coaching is the shortcut. Coaching, mentorship is the shortcut to getting the result that you want. It's leaning into other people's knowledge, attention, support, even if you feel like you know what you do. I have a coach right now and I'm so thankful for him. I always have coaches, but I mean, I have a fitness coach. I just re-engaged with one recently, and I've had them periodically. I know what to do. I know how to do it. I could write all my plans. And yet the power of coaching and just being able to hand that segment over to somebody else that I trust and then just follow what they're asking, right? It's a little bit more when you're working through emotional eating and that type of thing, but that's another conversation. But you could decide to tell yourself, I should be able to do this on my own. I should be able to figure it out. You could keep telling yourself for the next year, or you could choose to do things differently. And we all know the definition of insanity. All right, number 5. A lot of times women think that they lack discipline. They feel like, well, I'm just not disciplined enough, or I'm not motivated enough. And that's why I can't stay consistent. And I'm going to share this solution for you. I'm going to plant the seed of it anyway. It's a much bigger topic, but I would invite you to consider it's actually not that you lack discipline or that you lack motivation. It's that you are not currently standing in the fullness of belief in yourself. You don't truly believe that you're either worthy or that it is possible for you. And that's really hard to hear, and it might be hard to take in. And I want to honor that. And also, when you start to understand that it comes down to our thoughts and our beliefs, and that is the root of it all, that's when you start making sustainable changes. That's when you start looking at the true core issue that has kept you in this pattern. Because even if you have all of the right nutrition protocols that fit your lifestyle and all of these things, until you can do it by choice, forcing yourself to go through the actions for a period of time. And even then, until you go back and look at the root, you will pull yourself back to the place that you're most comfortable. You will pull yourself back to the identity that you think you're worthy of, the belief you think you're worthy of. And so it is a process. It's one of the things that we work through in my Kingdom Fit method, to discovering and rebuilding your belief. Mistake number 3 is the understanding, or I should say, not the understanding, the lack of understanding of what it is costing you to be where you are. And I know we're full of hard truths today, but I love you guys. And understanding these is what helped me transform, helped me sustain it. It's a work in progress. We get to continue the work until the day God takes us home. Thankfully, he's given me a specific process that I get to take women through to make your journey a little bit lighter. And yet one of the mistake number 3, and it's intentionally remember we worked backwards. So it's intentionally, like the third biggest mistake is that you ignore the cost. And this was so true. Ignore or minimize the cost of what it is costing you. And I'll give you a personal example again of how this was true for me, so that maybe it makes it more recognizable for you. When I say ignore the cost, first of all, I mean that you're not getting real with yourself about what you're missing out on. And a lot of times with women, that especially if your challenge is emotional eating like it was mine, it's like the chicken before the egg, because we're not dealing with our feelings. So we're going to food, trying to stuff our feelings down or ignore them or calm our anxiousness instead of doing the real work. And so because we're ignoring emotions, we aren't really dealing with what it's costing us to have that pattern. And what it's costing you might be different. I will tell you that for me, like initially I could see that it was costing me to be the level of mom that I was. And then clearly I had no idea it was also holding me back in business at the, 20 years ago. And then not behind the scenes, I was always very transparent that I still, even long after I looked reasonably healthy, I would go in and out of stages of the emotional eating or even the bulimia coming back. And I prayed and I did all of the things. And then one day at the top of my stairs, and the episodes became far further and fewer in between, for sure. So it could be like 6 to 9 months before I'd have another episode or eat out of emotion, that type of thing. Yet I knew it was still there. And so several years back now, I'm super grateful to say that I am absolutely healed and 100% free of this now. Several years ago, I'm not great at timing, maybe it was 6 or 7 years ago, I think. Probably a little bit more than that. Anyway, something crazy was going on in my personal life. I was feeling overwhelmed again, and all of the things and the temptation to eat just to be able to have that sense of release. I know it sounds backwards if you don't struggle with that. Came up again, and I again prayed and I again called back. And in that moment, everything God had worked into my life to that moment, everything he had taught me in that up until that moment, all of the things came together. And it was that moment that I was finally able to hear him say, Rebecca, as much as you have done, because I was already very successful we talked about corporate. I had that brick and mortar fitness business, built that to multiple 6 figures, had an amazing team, helped so many people. I, speak on stages, wrote a fitness app, like so many things that God did in and through me. And yet, as I'm sitting at the stairs, tempted to give in again, he said, everything you've done so far is amazing. And also, this battle that you're holding on to is standing between you and the greatest expression of yourself that allows you to truly experience the even more that I have for you. I get chills just even thinking about it today. And I can't tell you that it was never a temptation, but I will tell you that it was that moment and that understanding that was like almost the suddenly after a lot of work. And that's where I understood what it was costing me. I finally understood what it was costing me to hold on to that battle, right? And so for you, maybe it's not emotional eating, it's the constant discomfort in your skin. I've been there. It's the taking 3 to 5 outfit changes just to get up in the morning. I've had women come to me and say they look in the mirror and they literally think, what happened to you? Where did you go? And say really unkind things to themselves. And yet then show up on Zoom or show up for their clients or show up for their team because that's who we are. But don't think that voice, that critical voice, that voice that knows you're not where you want to be, that voice that knows you've kind of lost a piece of you along the way, don't think that side conversation and chatter is not showing up into that conversation with your team, into that conversation with your clients or the next iteration of clients that you're bringing in, or your spouse or your family, whatever it is for you. Right? And so we get to get really real about what it is costing us so that we decide, just like I did 20 years ago, and then again 6 or 7 years ago, that I'm done. That's no longer going to be my story. And then you put in the work. Fair enough? Mistake number 2, and then we're going to land this plane. Mistake number 2 is that a lot of women, and I understand it, totally get it. You think you have a food problem, but you have a thinking problem. I'm going to invite you to consider that. You think you have a food problem. You think it's the foods, you think it's the diets, you think all of this. And it kind of, number 2, ties to a lot of what we've already talked about, but I want to make this super clear. It is not a food problem. It is a thinking problem. People often ask me what the scriptures are on my arms, and they are life verses. Didn't get them until over 40, but they are life verses. And one of them is, for as he thinks in his heart, so is he. God started speaking this into my life long ago, that our thoughts drive our emotions and our beliefs. Our emotions and our beliefs held onto create our choices. Our choices made consistently over time create our lifestyles. And so whatever you have created for yourself today, it all started within your thoughts. And so you get to have a process of getting real about the thoughts that no longer serve you. Every thought you have in this moment has served you in some way, even if it's not showing up the way you want it to. It was keeping you safe. There was something about it that your brain thinks it was serving you, thinks it was helping you. Your brain's job is one of your primary brain's jobs, tongue-tied at the moment, is to keep you safe. And so your thoughts are there because they either drive you forward or your brain thinks it's protecting you in some way or some fashion. And the challenge with identifying the thoughts that no longer serve you, sometimes they're called limiting beliefs, right? Is that, yeah, you know the obvious ones, but you don't know the ones that you've been holding on to for so long that you believe them to be as true as the sky is blue. Didn't mean to rhyme, but there you go. You believe them to be as true as the sky is blue, so you don't even question them. So to try and figure out that source and do that on your own, it's hard. And you probably can. But do you want to? Do you want it to be the longer, harder journey? Or do you want someone to come alongside of you and show you a path, show you a method, show you an easier way, right? If you want someone to come alongside of you, then type mentor below and we'll connect. That wasn't the point of this call, but I don't want to leave you hanging. You need to be with the right person. And yeah, I am the right person. All right. The number one, and I think it might be obvious by now, but I've actually had women come to me and say this, and that is that the number one mistake that women make is not inviting God into their process when it comes to health and fitness, not inviting God into the process so that you have that sustainable result. I've had people come to me and say, I never really thought about that. I never thought about, like, it just seems some of us were raised to think that our sense of well-being or our physical bodies is just vain or selfish, or I don't know. I'd love to hear like how you, if you're comfortable sharing in the comments, or send me a message if you're listening to this podcast, like really think about that. What were you taught about your own your own physical well-being, that maybe self-care was selfish, right? Those are all just lies direct from the enemy, because it is the foundation. That's a whole nother talk. So we think that like it's not significant enough for God to care about it. Sister, God's word says that our body is his holy temple. It is the home of Holy Spirit. And he knows and he understands that to the extent in which we are healthy, it is the thing that allows us to be all we are meant to be, do all we are meant to do, and have all we are meant to have. It is not just about the body. It is not just about the weight on the scale. It's not just about the six-pack abs if you want them. It's not just about just feeling comfortable in a swimsuit or tank tops or whatever. All of those things, feeling amazing naked and like walking around your house confidently if nobody's home or whatever, like, or at least in front of your partner without hiding. All of those things are amazing side benefits. The real core of it is that our physical body, there's so much intricacy happening that you don't even see, that is impacted by how you're taking care of it, by the foods you choose, by the self-care habits, which is a longer conversation. So I won't go into it too much today, but all of that impacts our ability to just even function, think. And then therefore it impacts even the depth of the personal relationship we have with God. I know you can have an amazing relationship. I thought I had a really rocking relationship with him 6 years ago when I realized this thing was still in my way. And it turns out there was a whole new depth of intimacy. And so of course he cares. Of course he wants you to heal. Of course he wants you to feel amazing. Abundance is our kingdom inheritance, and having like amazing health in mind, body, and spirit, having that radiant, dynamic, powerful presence that carries into every room you walk in because you physically, mentally, and spiritually are just on fire. That is for you. That is what he wants for you, sister. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. If you want the resource, type resource below, or if you're listening to the podcast later, just click the link and I'll make sure we get it to you. And if you have any questions, once again, drop those. I would love to hear, what is your number one takeaway? Pick 1 or 2 things that you can work on as a result of this, and let me know what those are in the comments, or send me an email if you're listening to this on the podcast. Love you guys. Bye for now.